The judge, who has admitted stealing from his defendants and trying to frame his former lover on a fake drug charge, pled guilty today. The I-Team's Nancy Amons first broke the story on Judge Casey Moreland more than a year ago. She is live at the federal courthouse now. Nancy, what kind of sentence is he looking at?
Well, Tracy, we're not going to know Moreland's sentence until August, but his attorney told us today he expects a sentence of 3 to 4 years.
Former Judge Casey Moreland had no idea his life was about to unravel when the News 4 I-Team first asked him about Natalie Amos.
Looks like a firing squad.
Amos talked only to the News 4 I-Team, sharing her racy texts with the judge and telling us how the judge did favors for her, like erasing court fines in her DUI case.
I mean, my $1,200 was just gone.
When an officer caught her driving on a revoked license,
comes back to a Natalie Amos, D. David, revoked.
Moreland told police to let her go. In a text, the judge telling Amos, "Just used my superpowers." Amos says they had sex in his office afterwards. And this is what Moreland texted later. "My desk still has butt marks on it." In March of 2017, federal prosecutors played this bombshell in court.
And had drugs put like she had drugs on me.
The FBI wired an informant. That's Moreland you see in the lower corner.
Is he going to be one to pull her over?
He's trying to hire someone in law enforcement to plant drugs on Amos. That's not all. This is the money shot. More than $5,000 that Moreland planned to offer Amos as a bribe to say she made it all up.
Let me be clear. The allegations in the complaint set forth egregious abuses of power by a sitting judge here in Nashville.
Moreland got out on bond after being charged with intimidating a federal witness, his former lover. Moreland's freedom ended abruptly, though, when the FBI caught him on tape for the second time. It involved this woman you see talking to the judge. That's Nan Casey. She was in charge of the drug court treatment program. Nan Casey has now admitted to skimming money paid by clients and splitting it with Moreland. She wore a wire to a lunch meeting in March. Listen as they talk about what she should say to the grand jury.
If this comes out, my life's going to be destroyed.
Now, the U.S. attorney told me, in his opinion, the FBI tapes were some of the most damaging testimony because Moreland tried to cover up his crime. Nancy Amons, News 4.
A judge forced out of office in disgrace will be sentenced tomorrow. Casey Moreland was the subject of a News 4 I-Team investigation. Now, he's pleaded guilty to stealing from his own court clients and having sex with women whose cases he influenced.
And one of those women was Lee Terry. News 4's investigative reporter Nancy Amons has new details tonight about what Moreland's own employee witnessed.
A beautiful woman in big trouble. A judge on vacation in Dauphin Island, Alabama. Private time in this island house, then in the judge's chambers. Federal prosecutors say that changed the outcome of a court case.
Well, she had several DUIs.
You've heard the story of Lee Terry as told by her friend Natalie Amos, that Lee had sex with Judge Casey Moreland to get out of a DUI charge. And now we've learned federal authorities have corroborated at least part of the story. It started in June 2013. Lee arrested for the third time for drunk driving.
And she was going to jail for quite a while.
Under the law, Lee should have spent 45 days in jail. But Natalie says Lee called her lawyer, Brian Lewis. Lewis was on vacation with Judge Moreland at this beach house on Dauphin Island. Natalie says Lee told her that Brian Lewis gave her a choice.
He said, your options are you either come down here with us or you're in jail.
Lee flew to Alabama. Prosecutors say she shared a bedroom with the judge.
She felt like she had to keep Casey happy to get out of whatever trouble she was in, and she did have sex with him.
We discovered new information in court documents filed last week. Federal investigators say around the same time, 2013, back in Nashville, Lee came to the courthouse after hours. Moreland told his judicial assistant she should go home early. The judicial assistant later saw Moreland looking at a nude photo of Lee.
You know, it was like judge or go to jail.
Lee never spent time in jail on that DUI charge. Federal investigators say she made a plea deal with Moreland's approval, a deal to spend 5 days in jail. But Lee never served a day of it, and Moreland ended her probation early.
Obviously, fees.
2 years later, Natalie had her own legal trouble, a DUI. Lee introduced her to her friend Judge Moreland.
Federal investigators never got to interview Lee Terry. She committed suicide in May 2016. She'd just gotten back from a trip out of town with Brian Lewis and Casey Moreland. Moreland is going to be sentenced Friday at 3. I'm Nancy Ammons for the News 4 I-Team.
Also breaking at this hour, a formerly respected judge now headed to prison. Casey Moreland was the subject of a News 4 I-Team investigation that lasted more than a year. And today, the former General Sessions judge stood before a federal judge to hear his sentence. News 4 I-Team's Nancy Ammons broke the story nearly 2 years ago now. Tonight, she tells us how it all ends for Moreland. Nancy?
Well, Tracy, the sentence, 44 months in federal prison, just shy of 4 years. Federal prosecutors say Moreland had abused his position of power for years, stealing money from his drug court clients, giving special treatment to his friends and lovers, destroying evidence, tampering with witnesses. The U.S. Attorney's Office had asked Judge Waverly Crenshaw to give Moreland 5 years. He obviously got less. Moreland's wife was one of the witnesses who testified on his behalf today. Judge Crenshaw, though, imposing the sentence, called Moreland disgraceful and said, "You have a reckless, self-centered mentality, that you are above the law."
This is an egregious case. It's a case of someone who raised their right hand, swore an oath, put on a judicial robe, and then decided to violate that oath and that trust that the people put in him. And I think it's appropriate that he's going to trade that judicial robe in for a prison jumpsuit.
Now, Moreland talked to the judge today, addressed the court, apologized for his actions. Judge Crenshaw, I think, summed up what a lot of people were thinking. This is the end of a very sad story. Tom and Tracy?
Thank you very much. And if it weren't for Nancy Ammons, everyone, no one would ever know about Casey Moreland's crimes.